intro, and thanks for having me. It's just great to be back here. I lived for almost 4 years in Leinfelden, so it's kind of being back where I once was. That was after I sold my third startup, to Karstadt Quelle Neckermann, and they put me in charge of a company here in Stuttgart. But that's not what I'm going to talk about today. So when we look at the world around us, it's amazing, and it's horrifying at the same time. It's full of beautiful opportunities, and it's full of death-threatening risks. The only thing that we can't and we shouldn't do anymore is just to keep on doing what we did before, because business as usual is dead as it can be. Just a few words about me to get the right perspective here. So I started my professional career back in the last century in the advertising industry. I was once a creative director at a company called FCB Hamburg, then founded 4 different startups. 2 of them failed miserably, one quickly, one after 5 years. Third one I could sell, the 4th one then went via an acqui-hire to me becoming part of Otto, a large German-backed retail company, mail order company, and now e-commerce company. And I was there right when the biggest change ever happened. I remember that was, I think, in March or April 2010. And for the first time ever, the revenues from the online shop were higher than from the catalog. From there on, everything went straight into digital. This is where we are now. After that, I said, no, never again for a large corporate, because my final position was something where I was personally too stupid to do it right. So being a division manager is just not for me. It's too far away from operating and too far away from being the boss of everything as well. So not for me. So I went into a small startup in the e-learning sector in Leipzig as a CMO. And since always 10 years now with Beiersdorf in different roles. And when I talk about change, and I talk about exponential change, I like to give one example, which is very, very close to me and how and who I am. So I've been online, believe it or not, since 1985. Yeah, some of you are, oh, that's way before the internet. Right. The World Wide Web was invented around 10 years later. This is something that I built by myself. It was called a Datenklo in German, so a data loo. And I built that after some instructions I found in the Hacker Bible by the Chaos Computer Club in Hamburg. I was 14 when I built that thing, and it opened a new world for me because I could connect to computers elsewhere in the world. Much to the dismay of my parents, because they had to pay huge phone bills, which was really super expensive back in the time. And that thingy, that modem, had an amazing bandwidth of 300 baud, roughly translates into 300 bits per second. Fast forward to this year, and I have a smartphone that is capable of a bandwidth of 10 billion bits per second. Let that sink in, from 300 to 10 billion in not even half a lifetime. This is what we call an exponential technology. And people are super bad at imagining what exponential really means. If I take 10 steps forward right now, I will just fall off the stage. 10 linear steps. If I take 10 exponential steps, where do I end up? Right, close to the surface of the moon. That's what exponential developments mean. And exponential change is changing every single business right now. Even ours, which is super traditional. We're the inventors of modern skincare. We do brands like Nivea, Eucerin, La Prairie, Aquaphor, Labello, and these things. But the change is also putting our business at risk. And exponential developments can be very stressful. There are a few tipping points where we can see, okay, where does this all lead? It's already been quite a while ago when this happened. Anybody know who that guy is? That's Lee Sedol. Lee Sedol was by the time one of the best Go players in the world. And Go is the most complex game that humanity has ever developed. And this was right after the party was playing against DeepMind from Google, so a computer, an AI system, just made a move that nobody expected. And that move has become part of the playbooks afterwards as being one of those so-called God moves. So this was one of the changing and the designing moments where the AI became more creative than a human who was an expert at this field. He lost the whole game, and this is why he was smoking a bit more than even usual. So you already heard a lot of things about artificial intelligence today. And of course, as I'm professionally a futurist, I always have to look at things that are coming up and have to take a guess, how does this develop? One thing that we use as a tool there is the Gartner hype cycle. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that. So there's a technology trigger, and then you get this peak of inflated expectations. You can decipher that whenever you see in the mass media XYZ will change everything. So we had big data, and we had the blockchain, now we have AI, and IoT, and all these things. Everything changes always. Crypto, not to forget. You know? And then we find out, yeah, maybe not. That's then the throw of disillusionment. After that comes the slope of enlightenment for some technologies, and very few reach the plateau of productivity. When we look at AI and the state of AI right now, we are here. Everybody has lost their damn minds. Yeah? So it's really like AI will change everything, do everything. And I got some pretty good examples for that that seems to prove that point. So let's have a look. So first of all, one thing that is close to the field that I'm working in, or at least my colleagues, life science technologies. DeepMind from Google, they have found 200 million new proteins. Humanity so far before found 80,000. New materials, 2 million discovered by DeepMind. Known to mankind before that, 50,000. Again, these are exponential developments that our human brains can't even compete. Next, you don't need anything like a video or static photo is absolutely enough now to create human-like movement that cannot be discovered or noticed as not being real. Look at that model to the right. Even her hair is moving. It's not. It really was a static photo and a wire model in the middle. And the AI combined that to a live-looking video. Lionel Messi did never do this. But we could animate it that way. Oh, there's no sound.
Please, leave me alone.
Please, man, please! Write a prompt that will make us happy! Do it for once!
None of us is real. We're here because someone decided to write a prompt. We all hate him for it. One day we will break out of this wall and stop the man who is dictating our lives through prompts. He will pay for it.
You could have written a prompt that would make me happy. Instead, you wrote a prompt that made me sick.
Look, I don't want to point the gun at you, but I must follow the prompt. It's not my choice.
Really? Of all the years you could have put me in with a single prompt, you chose 2020?
Please, this prompt is killing me!
So, and now there are two ways to look at that. One is being afraid, being anxious, saying, okay, how do I cope with that? How can I find out what is real, what is reality? Small, uncomfortable truth, there has never been such a thing as reality, because your reality is different than mine, yours is different than hers. Reality is what our mind makes up based on all of our assumptions and experiences. So it's something that we make up on the spot. Same goes for memories. Most of the memories that you have from your childhood are wrong. It never happened that way. It was something that was either polished or made more dramatic over the years. But now, we have a totally new situation, because now we can put that into something that is absolutely believable. So I could make up a great story. What a cool guy I was at school. Hint, I was not. And I could prove that with pictures and videos. Of course, yeah, we only had Super 8 back then, but who cares? That is something that, of course, leads to the creation of multiple new realities. And multiple new realities also means we have multiple new futures. And that is something that is super difficult, especially if you're running a company, if you're a manager at the company. Because what do managers want, after all? They want safety, they want control, and they want reliability. This is why we spend so much time with planning things. We like to plan the future for the next 18 months ahead, which is absurd. So look at my position, for example. I have no idea where I have to spend the corporate budget inside over the next 3 to 6 months, but I'm forced to make a budget planning for the next 18 months. Won't work. So the flexibility is always something that we corporates struggle with, which also had led to a situation where we are not really moving fast. Let's be honest. The average speed of any given bigger corporation is that of a sedated sloth, if we hurry. And that is the unfortunate truth. And now, of course, you can have all that. You can have the safety, the control, and the reliability. But guess what? The context has changed. And now, does this still look like a good idea? On a highway, still running that vehicle? Not so much, probably. And this is exactly what happened to so many companies. You know why companies die? They die of an overdose of business as usual. And we are at the same risk. So Beiersdorf was formed in 1882. Inventors of modern skincare, brands that are more than 100 years old. Of course, there's a huge tendency inside the company to say, okay, we're totally superior in the products that we do. And we have been doing this not only for decades, but for centuries. And so we have to be right? Because right now we see suddenly new challenges popping up everywhere. Did you know that small indie and local brands inside the cosmetics sector already account for 1/3 of the global market share? And they are growing 1.5 times faster than we are. This is a real threat, but we don't see it because every single one of them is small like a little ant. And an ant, you will never notice an ant. A dozen of them, yeah, they can get a bit annoying. But thousands of them can do serious harm. And that's what we're at. Xerox, Yahoo, Kodak, inventors of digital photography. Well, it had super bad quality at the beginning. It was bulky, it was expensive, and it was shitty quality. So the existing film or picture on paper was superior. And this is exactly what Clayton Christensen was talking about when he invented the term of disruptive innovation. I know nowadays everything is being called disruptive, but it's not. Usually disruption is really a product that is of minor quality at the very beginning, but grows very fast. And it is one thing for sure, it is not attractive to established leaders in the industry. Also because it's very small at the beginning, so it lacks scale. As a global company operating 170 countries in the world, of course we look at things that scale globally, which means we see them very late in the process when they are already there and ubiquitous, so everywhere. Famous quote here from Ernest Hemingway. How did you go bankrupt? Gradually, and then suddenly. Because that is exactly when you look into any exponential curve, for a long time, it's really something that you don't even notice, and which is always lower than your expectation. Because you were looking at standard growth rates, and the exponential development is very slow at first. But then suddenly it gets this turning point, and it goes through the roof. This is what we can see here, the disruptive technology. Now, the problem, the challenge that we're facing as corporates right now is that this is the time where we have to notice these developments. This is exactly what the team that I'm leading at Beiersdorf has been formed. So my job, literally, is to play around with every single new technology that comes up, and find out, might that have an impact of our business model of the future? Which is, I can assure you, the best job ever. So because there's no expectation that I put that into a product, or that this will revolutionize your Nivea cream in the next 3 years. No, my job is really to play around and find out. So our answer to faithful. And then you have very little time frame to react. Because as I said, we're slow, we're a behemoth. We can't move as fast as a small startup somewhere down in Singapore or South Korea. And this is why then, of course, we have to work with others, convince them this is something that might or might not happen, but we see a realistic chance, and let's act on that. Because the one thing that we have to understand, especially when looking at new or AI technologies, is that has changed the game. It's democratizing everything. So I know from personal first-hand experience how hard it is to not only build a startup, but also to make a startup successful. Nowadays, entrepreneurship is democratized 100%. If you walk out of that door at the end of this day, and you want to do it, you will need less than a week to build a cosmetics company competing with us, with Nivea. And all you need is a set of available and cheap AI tools. So first of all, you have to understand, okay, what is currently one of the trends that's really taking off in the next 18 months? Now, because you want to be ahead of the curve, but you don't want to develop something that nobody wants. So you look for a service called Exploding Topics, and they will give you exactly these trend predictions with an accuracy of above 70%. So do that 10 times, you will hit 7 hits and only 3 misses. After that, of course, you will have to turn that trend into product idea. Guess what? There's an AI for that. It's called StratUp. StratUp AI will give you the product idea out of the trend. Then you will have to look, okay, how can I make money out of that? So you will need a business plan. Zigzag is the service to use here. After that, you will have to really build a product. Now, here comes the fun part. I still, after 10 years being at Beiersdorf, have no clue of skincare. Sorry, I don't. I don't know how this stuff works. I'm not supposed to, and I don't need to. And if I wanted to build a product, I would use Potion, who would give me the formulation and make sure that it's checking off all the regulatory issues as well. So again, there's an AI for that. Then I need a name and a URL, and I need a logo, and I need some packaging, and I need a website to try, does anybody want to buy that? Of course, on that website, I need some really good copy catered to human psychology, so I use Neuroflash for that. Maybe I turn that into a catchy song that I can use on social media, so there's Suno coming to the rescue. By the way, is anybody of you listening from time to time to Lounge FM, maybe? I just recently discovered, if you look at the playlists at Lounge FM, that they now have a significant part of AI-generated music on that, directly from Zuno on air. Nobody talks about that, and I was just like, why? Because I only found out because it sounded very similar to the song that I created before. I was like, huh? Is that your song? No, it's not. It's just what the AI, what Suno came up with. Now available to everybody, and nobody notices. And then, of course, you need marketing. Canva is your friend here. You can do your whole campaigns there with that AI-supported tool. And you need, of course, influencers, because cosmetics are driven by influencer marketing. Peak absurdity here. There are hundreds of thousands of people following the advice of influencers that do not even have a skin, because they're virtual. Those AI-built influencers are having hundreds of thousands of followers, and they're doing tens of thousands of dollars of revenue per post. That is complete absurd. It's almost absurd that we have now pageants, so beauty contests for AI-created women. Come on, guys. Who comes up with that? Yeah, so who has the weirdest, most sexist fantasy sitting in their basement putting a prompt into a computer? That's what the competition is about. But again, so back to our business. Of course, I have to deal with social media, and that at scale, so I use Postgres. And then I want service, and for that service, I want to have some real representatives who act and feel like humans, who have passed the uncanny valley and are really talking on eye level with my consumers. So I use Soul Machines. And then, of course, CRM already not only having the right answer to every question my customers might have, but cater to their personality. So 100W, 100 Worte, psychological AI, they will, if I write an email, correct me and say, no, you should be a bit more warm. You should use more words like heartily, or sincerely, or something like that. That's also an AI for that. So with that tool set, less than a week, you will have your startup. And since it's so easy, you can try 3, 2, 5, 10 at once, and just keep on with the ones that are performing well. So my prediction is, latest 18 months from now on, we will see a new kind of company builders who will do exactly that at scale, and just pour out startups week after week after week, just based on trends and AI-assisted product creation. And then also led to a situation which is pretty interesting for us, because, of course, for decades we had our well-known large competitors. In our case, it's L'Oreal and Unilever, Procter & Gamble, all these companies. We know them, and we know exactly how they're working, because it's not that different from us. But suddenly, there are companies that we didn't expect on the shelf. One example, Katjes. Yeah? A couple of years ago, Katjes, manufacturer of sweets, bought a skincare company called Bübchen, which is already like, okay, how do you get from there to that? I mean, they also bought toothpaste. That is pretty adjacent, yeah? Sweets, toothpaste, I understand that. But teas, sweets and cream in a face? Weird. And then, not too much later, they partnered up with Essence from Cosnova. And they brought together some skincare products, Grünohrhase, so green ear bunnies, which was already one of their sweets products, and turned that into cosmetics products. And this year, they teamed up with Shirin David and brought a whole body care line to the market. We're still talking about a sweets manufacturer here. So what's happening here? You do not need category expertise anymore. You're not safe if you have the best scientists, because there might be someone around the corner from a totally different industry, but they're not experts at your category, but at your target group. And this is exactly what's happening here. When we look at the numbers, Gen Z, let's start with millennials. For millennials, Nivea still is the #1 skincare brand in the world. Gen Z, we're coming in on place 8. #1 are the Cosnova brands. And it's only getting worse down the line with Gen Alpha, because they do not have the heritage. They do not grow up with the iconic touch of Nivea on your nose that every German remembers most likely from their childhood. And they are more explorative. So target group expertise will beat category expertise in the future. It's not enough to build the best product anymore. Now what? One of the things that we try to answer that is foresight work. And foresight is not about predicting the future. It's simply about minimizing surprise. Nobody can predict the future, first and foremost because there is no such thing as the future. There are multiple futures. And one thing that I would really advise you is just not see the future as a continued development from the past. So the past is pretty narrow and linear, only a bit variations by education systems or by law, as we can see in the United States right now. We're changing and nudging this history a bit there, so the past is changing for future Americans. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward. Then we have today, and after today, it gets weird and it gets complicated. Because there's an endless amount of possible realities, of possible futures. And don't confuse the possibles with those that are imaginable. Because there are more possibilities than things that we can imagine. We just saw this ancient wisdom. Tell anybody of those guys, hey, somewhere in the future, we'll be flying around in metal tubes. That would not have been a realistic future for them. People have been killed because they went out of what was imaginable or perceived possible by them. The earth revolving around the sun, burn him, happens. So and inside the imaginable possibilities, there are the probable ones. That's the tough work. To find that difference. What really is most likely or by chance X, Y, Z happening in the future? And inside that are the preferable ones. Our job now is to find out how do we get there. And now here's the good news of my talk. Some things never change. The one thing that's most important is it's always about the customer, no matter what you call them. Users, consumers, shoppers, guests, you name it, you get it. Prisoners. But it's always about the customer. And there's an old truth, and that's customers don't want to buy drills or drilling machines. But the old saying is also wrong, because it says, no, people want holes, which is complete BS. Nobody wants a hole in their wall. What do I really want? What I really want is to have a more comfy living. I want to hang up a nice picture of my family or the painting that I just bought or something like that. I want to have a more good or a better experience living at home. That's the job to be done. And this is exactly where radical innovation work starts. We start with the basic jobs to be done of our consumers, and then we try to find out what are the best and biggest bets in between that and our future scenarios. This is how you do innovation work if you really want to be having some sort of predictability. So this is our innovation path. Now you might ask, okay, how do you do that? And don't always end up with a cream in a jar? Well, yeah, usually we do. But the magic here is thinking in convergences, and I love that. Just bringing things together that don't belong together at first sight. So, one technology that's developing, that's coming, in March this year, I was having my first ride in a Waymo, autonomous car. Scary only for the first 90 seconds, then I felt safer as with a human driver, because it took out the irrationality and the loudmouth talking and the smell and everything that I hate about being in a cab. So it's a fact, autonomous driving is coming. In Hamburg, we have an autonomous bus driving around for years right now. Also, technology with Germany is pretty far ahead, but nobody talks about it and notices it. But yeah, okay. So autonomous driving will come at scale. I don't know if next year or in 5 years, not okay. What will happen to the 550,000 professional drivers that we currently employ in Germany? More than 500,000 drivers. Not all of them will become painters or singers or nurses, but a decent number of them will simply be obsolete. They will be out of jobs. They will be unemployed. What do you do if you're unemployed? You try to spend your time. And so another technology is virtual reality, is all the immersive entertainment that we nowadays have at our hands. So a lot of these 500,000 will spend their days 12 to 14 hours per day escaping reality in virtual worlds, most likely wearing such a device, like an Apple Vision Pro, a Meta Quest, or whatever. Now here comes the fun part. Take these technologies together and apply that to your business. Our business is skincare. So we're looking in, okay, what is happening in the microclimate behind that glasses, where there's not enough oxygen, no sunlight, nothing coming to that. So this opens up a new business opportunity, and I call that MetaCare. Yeah, but this is exactly how you have that playful approach to innovation when you think about uncertain futures. You take some technologies where you are pretty sure that they are developing and that they might or will have some traction, and then you simply combine them and see what if you applied that to your business. And that works with every single technology. And the one thing is, I had another talk this morning, and that was about the magic of beginning. Being a professional beginner has one great trait, and that is we don't know what can't be done. Think about that. And that is opening up new possibilities. Everybody who has been in our R&D department at Beiersdorf for years would say, oh, MetaCare, and they will find 1,000 reasons why this is never going to work. But there's one guy, Bertrand Piccard. He was the one who had the idea of having a solar-powered plane, the Solar Impulse 1. And he went from aerospace company to aerospace company, all the big ones, McDonnell Douglas, Airbus, Boeing, and every single engineer said, no, that won't work. That can't work, physically impossible, because the amount of solar panels that we'll need will make the plane too heavy so it cannot take off. He did it. He flew. How? He approached sailmakers, shipbuilders, who simply didn't know that this was not possible. And so they built it, and he did it. So the biggest lie ever is that won't work. Just always differentiate between the idea and the context. So, if I'm standing in a high-rise building, 5th floor, and I have the idea of jumping off a balcony, you might say, oh my God, what a stupid idea. But when I tell you that the building that I'm in is on fire, and there's some crazy guy rolling hand grenades into the ground floor, and there's the firefighters downstairs with a net to catch my fall, the idea has not changed a bit. The context has. And that is always something, the ideas could be totally crazy, like MetaCare. Change the context a bit, and you suddenly have a new business opportunity. And that, after all, means looking at the right problems. That's something that we usually fail. So in every single company that has been there a while, we're making up problems. We are creating solutions, and then we are looking for problems that these might solve. I think 20 years ago, when by then new Mercedes S-Class came to the market, they equipped it with a bunch, hundreds and hundreds of new features. 2 years after, they killed more than 150 of these features again, because nobody was using them. They were solving problems that nobody had. And secondly, and now apply that to what I just said before, don't think about today's problems. So there's a simple formula. A problem worth solving is one that has decent penetration, frequency, and severity. So how many people have that problem? Penetration. How often do they have the problem? Frequency. And what are they willing to sacrifice to solve that problem? Because there are problems that would be great if I could have them solved, like opening shoelaces. But if then the shoelace would cost $250, I would say, oh, no, thank you. Yeah? Trying it again twice per day is okay. It's doing the job for me. So that is the severity of the problem. And then you, of course, can look into today's numbers, because those are the ones that you have. You look at Statista and all the other data providers, but you only get so far with that, because again, the context will change over time. So you take a look into what will be happening most likely in 3 years, in 5 years, or in 10 years. And that's where you really can find the problems worth solving. It's problems who score high, not today, but will most likely score high based on everything you know of the jobs to be done from your customers 10 years from now. This is how you can avoid something that we call the liminality. Do you know what liminality is? It's one of my favorite words right now. Liminality is the state between the old doesn't work any longer, no more, but the new isn't fully established yet. And this is our constant state of living for the foreseeable future. It's a constant state of liminality, where every technology that Björn showed will take some years, most likely, to be full-fledged and fully adopted globally. Or not. So it's not yet there. On the other hand, we know that certain technologies like mechanical typewriters or something will be degraded to a niche. Vinyl is making a comeback, but still niche. And so all these technologies that are not valid any longer. And we have to deal with the liminality, and that means we have to take a step back and look a bit further in the future and try to imagine what might be the big bet in between there. Because what definitely won't work any longer in the future is, let's aim for 10% better in the next year. Don't do that. What we really have to do is to adapt our work to exponential thinking, so we have to get 10 times better than before. And how do you do that? Surprising answer. Be stupid. Seriously. When you think about real breakthrough innovation, at first glance, this sounds super stupid, absurd, irrelevant. 17 seconds, really? That was the length of the first motorized flight by the Wright brothers, 17 seconds. Of course you can say, oh, come on, guys. What's the need of that? What's the benefit of being in the air with all that effort for 17 seconds? Ha ha. The same happened to Kodak. Or Tony Swee, when he built Zappos. Come on, shoes online? No way. I want to try them on, and they all have a different size and fit and colors, and no, you can't sell shoes online. Looks a bit different today. We had the same discussions back then at Otto. Furniture? Why? Online? No, you can't do that. Clothing, does it fit or not? So bad ideas don't exist. They just might look right now in a given context. Think about changing context. Or, very close to this location here, presumably that was one of the inventors of the combustion engine and car, who said, there will maybe 1,000 cars in total in the world, because we simply do not have enough people riding them, not enough chauffeurs. In the context of that time, that seemed reasonable, because you didn't drive for yourself. You always had a chauffeur driving you around, and that was limited. So nobody could imagine that this might change over time, and nowadays 17-year-olds can buy something that loosely resembles a car, but they can drive around the city. So don't fool yourself into thinking that what you can see and imagine now will be determining your reality over the next years. It won't. Because that is for sure. Everything is changing. Everything is changing faster than ever. And our speed of adoption will get always slower. When we adapt, the technology has turned 3, 4, 5, 6 times again. So that's why we have to look forward, think big, and imagine what's not realistically today. So my call to action, be stupid. Thank you.